Squintina here, and today I'm going to go over my Bard controller setup. So let's get started. I've already separated my actions right here. These are based on the level 80 versions. If you are lower than that, some of these will automatically adjust, so there is nothing missing here. We're going to actually start with the shared actions. So here are my role actions, and that's because we want to make sure that they are in the same place as our dancer and machinist setups. So, foot graze goes here. I know some of you may be like, but I don't need that. I always place everything because need is relative to what kind of content you do. For example, if you were doing some solo Battles of the Dead, you actually might want to have foot graze. And so I'd like to have everything. If there's something you truly believe you do not need because you do not do any kind of content that needs it, well, you don't have to use it. You can just remove it and put something else there. Our interrupts go here. And then, of course, on our double, second wind. This is actually a very common place for a lot of self-heals that are abilities on most of my jobs. And our anti-knockback always goes here. This is true for all of the roles, all of the jobs. My graze is here. And on the expanded, which is when you use both triggers together, we're going to have Peloton right here. Back on the double, we're going to have another shared action, not our role action. We're going to have Limit Break. And for those who've seen my setup, you know that Sprint actually goes on macro 99 for me. 99. So that it can be used as my click-in, or the right click. So that handles our shared actions. If you want, you could have Sprint visible somewhere, if you just want to see the cooldown. So then we've got, of course, our most important thing is our GCD. Gotta keep your GCD rolling, right? And then there's the difference between when you're fighting single targets, which tends to be more high-end content, whereas AoE, which tends to be dungeon pulls. So we're going to start with our single target. We got Burst Shot, Refulgent Arrow. So we want our GCD, our weapon skills here. We're going to have Iron Jaws here. It's very important, because it's going to be a boss focus section. On the other side, I'm actually going to place Quick Knock. You may be aware that in many jobs I do have AoE on the expanded. This is something I will have as an option, but I will also have this here. It's just because ranged physical DPS, which Bard is, don't have as many actions compared to other jobs, and they can actually afford to do both, or just one of them. And I'm actually going to put the dots, Caustic Bite and Stormbite, here. The reason for this is actually quite simple. If you're against a boss, you're going to apply these at the beginning, and ideally, you will keep using Iron Jaws. There might be times when you have to reapply, but for the most part, you're going to be sticking to this section here when you're fighting bosses. Whereas when you're using AoEs, you might actually be using this more simply because you will be dotting many things if you're trying to take advantage of your songs, and then once you get to a certain point where you can't, you'll be using Quick Knock to just fill it in. And so it actually makes more sense to have these in the AoE section anyway. Apex Arrow is used for both single target and AoE. I'm going to put it here because I'm going to put something else here. So now we move on to our abilities. I'm actually going to skip the songs for now and just move on to actual abilities, specifically buffs. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I do have little rules about where I prefer certain things to be, which I use across many jobs and many roles altogether. And so I need to make sure that those are placed where they should be. So self-buff is usually one of these two, with the priority being this one. Whereas party buff, which is battle voice in this case, self-buff plus raging strikes, would be right here. Resource, now what counts as a resource will change per job. You could say that the songs are a resource, but in this case I will consider Barrage to be a resource, sort of. And that will go right here. Then we've got our party helper tools. So mitigation, party mitigation I usually serve here. That will be Troubadour. And if there's a second one, especially if it's a healing one, it will go next to it. Ordnance Pain, I'm treating just the same way I would treat Asuna, and I'm going to put it right here. So, then we have... Actually, I'm going to do the songs next, because now that we've placed these, that's not too bad. Let me just do Repelling Shot real quick. Repelling Shot, I have 2 designated spaces for jumps. Jump forward is a double, right here. But this is not a jump forward, it's a jump back. And that's designated for the Expanded here. Which, like another job that would use that would be Samurai. So then our songs. Warrantress Minuet and Mage's Ballad will go here. And that's basically to remind you, kind of your rotation. While it does vary for AoE, and there's lots of rules and you really should read about that on your own, when it comes to single target, the overall rotation is you want to do Minuet and then Ballad for 30 seconds, and then you want to do Paeon for 20 seconds. So by putting Paeon, Army's Paeon by itself, it's kind of going to remind you, oh right, that's the short one. Hopefully. So that leaves our attacks. And there's a reason I left them last is because when it comes to these, I really will say it's okay to be flexible. Definitely change it if you want something else instead, because it can be a little bit tricky depending on how much of a main you are, I suppose. But I'm going to place Bloodletter and its AoE equivalent, Rain of Death, here, and Sidewinder and Shadowbite there. I like doing that because that makes it very clear, especially if you're not a main, if this is a job you're picking up every once in a while, that, oh, these share a cooldown, that shares a cooldown. And Pitch Perfect, I'm going to also put it here because, you know, it's a proc, and so just like Bloodletter is a proc, Pitch Perfect is a proc, just for a different song. And I kind of like that. But then that leaves Empyreal Arrow. And I do actually like having, even though it's not a GCD, Empyreal Arrow here. Because it kind of reminds me that in some occasions I may want to leave, or not, accordingly. However, that being said, if you wanted, you could put it there and then put an Apex Arrow here. It's an option, depending on whether you don't like having Apex Arrow on the other side. And that's it. I am going to do the alternative version, where the AoE on top of being where it already is, will also be on the Expanded. Alright, so this is the alternative AoE version, and if you choose to use this, there will be actually a few changes. We're going to place Quick Knock here. And we're going to try to recreate essentially what would have been here, but on the Expanded. And so, Caustic Bite will go here, and Peloton will actually get moved. Stormbite will get here, and Apex Arrow. We would have Rain of Death, and Shadowbite. are pitch perfect. If that happens to be the song you have, you may want to use it. And then for Repelling Shot, you get brought back down, up, and Empyreal Arrow would be put here. So this could be a setup for it. What that means is that you would then need to put Peloton and Repelling Shot somewhere else. And that means your Peloton is not going to have the same pace as your Machinist and Dancer unless you also move them to the same place. So this is very much a choice. It's an alternative version where you want to keep your AoEs separate. Just like I do for some of my other jobs where that is required for me to do. I would also recommend, if you do decide to go with this alternative version, to actually put Empyreal Arrow in the same place, which is here. As far as Peloton and Straight and Repelling Shot, they can be placed where the potions normally would be. It just means you'd have less spot for those. And potentially maybe one of them could be here, I guess, if you really wanted that. You could move FFXIV Arrow and put Peloton or Repelling Shot here, I suppose. There's many other ways you could do this. Bard is very, very fluid, and because it's a priority-based job, and so it actually does kind of affect how the hotbars are and how you kind of view it. So it's very normal. Alright, so a summary version. On the right side we have Burst Shot, Refulgent Arrow, Empyreal Arrow, and Iron Jaws, as well as Bloodletter, Sidewinder, and Pitch Perfect. On the left side we've got Quick Knock, Apex Arrow, Stormbite, Caustic Bite, Rain of Death, Shadowbite, Foot Graze, and Head Graze. On the double, we've got our Wanderer's Minuet, Battle Voice, Barrage, and Mage's Ballad. Nature's Mina, Troubadour, Arm's Length, and Raging Strikes. The double on the left has Army's Paeon, Leg Graze, Second Wind, Warden's Pain, Limit Break, and 3 slots for potions or other changes you want to make to the setup. On the Expanded, we have Peloton and Repelling Shot. This is assuming you are not using the alternative version where the AoE is placed in the back, which was earlier in the video and will not be in the summary. Alright, that's it, and I will see you for the next one. Bye bye!